Welcome to Dr. Dana's Diary. I really like going to conferences because apart from the exchange of knowledge, you nearly always meet interesting people. And this conference wasn't an exception. So this is rank number 8 on my personal top 10 list of things that went slightly strange. I have to say it was a conference in Vienna, Austria. And it was quite a large conference with many parallel sessions, and myself and some colleagues had organized one of these sessions. So personally, I felt that I had to be in as many of my own sessions and the talks within as possible, but there were some parallel sessions that also had very interesting topics. So once in a while I went to other people's sessions, and yeah, this is totally normal during such a conference. And in this particular case, I had picked out a talk that sounded totally fascinating. So I went there, and it was supposed to be the first talk of this session, and I sat down in a room with roughly 40 people. So if quite a lot of people come to your talk, that's always a good sign. Now, I knew the colleague sitting next to me, and he was whispering, "Do you know who's giving the next talk?" And I was like, "No, I mean by the name, but I had never met this person." And he said, "Then you're in for a treat." And I was like, okay, now I'm really curious, because I know a couple of colleagues who give really great talks. Some of them are extremely, say, funny and engaging that they really draw people in. Others are so to the point scientifically that you feel like they are really literally giving you ideas of what you can do in the future. So there are really people that can give great talks. So when he said it, I had great expectations. When the session started and the session chair introduced this colleague, he came on stage and looked at us, and then his slides came on, the first one with the title and just his name and his affiliation, and then he started talking. But wait, he did one thing before he started talking. He turned around. He actually turned to the wall in order to see his own slides, standing with his back to us, and started talking. Now, this wouldn't have been a problem if we had a microphone in the room, but no, there was no microphone. So it's not a good thing to turn around and talk to a wall when you have an audience of 40 people in a not too small room listening to you, in particular if your voice is rather low. That's not a good sign, because nobody's really able to catch what you're saying, and the first impulse of 2 people in the audience after the literally second sentence was, "Could you please speak louder?" And he was actually trying. I mean, it would have helped to turn around. So we tried to ask again, and the session chair was like, "Please, Mr. I'm not going to say the name, could you turn around to the audience and speak to the audience? They can't really hear you." So he turned around and repeated the title of his talk, his name and his affiliation, and then he put on the second slide and turned around, standing again with his back to us, and it got even worse. When I looked at the slide, I was like, no way. It said introduction, which is a good thing, but beneath the introduction title, the slide contained text, and I mean massive amounts of text. What this colleague had done, and please, if you ever have to give a talk, don't do it. He just copied the text and figures of his latest publication onto the slides. He literally copied all the text. So it contained rows and rows of tiny letters that formed apparently his text. And he kept firmly standing with his back to us. even though the session chair was trying to get him to turn around and not, stick to literally reading the text, which was even worse. It wasn't just that he had put the text onto the slide, but he was reading the text. Now, if I had wanted to read his latest paper, I could just download it, sit down in front of my computer or take my tablet and sit down in a comfy chair and read it. This is not what giving a talk should be about. And I suppose if you have to vote for the worst lecture that personally I have ever encountered, that is the one. Standing with your back to the audience, not looking at them, talking in a hushed voice, having on your slides tons and tons of text, and then reading this text is all the no of things that you shouldn't be doing. Don't do it. What happened is quite apparent. If you have such a terrible talk, people started to leave the room. Now, I am extremely polite. I only leave a room if I really have to. So if there is something like an emergency or somebody is talking way too long and I have to be in a different room, then I would leave the room. But this was actually one of the extremely few cases where I ever left the room, because after nearly 10 minutes, I just couldn't take it anymore. It was so painful to, sit there, strain your ears. What is he saying? What is he saying? And at the same time, you could literally read, but the letters were too small to read it. So it was either killing my eyes or killing my ears. And so I decided, no, I have to leave the room. The funny thing that happened later was, a couple of hours later actually, I met the session chair again and I was like, how did the rest of the session go? And he was like, don't ask. At the end of the 20 minutes of this lecture, literally only the guy who gave the lecture, he as a session chair, and 2 other people were in the room. One of them actually was the organizer of the session, and one of them, apparently I heard later, was a PhD student of the guy giving the talk. So literally a room full of people has vanished into thin air due to a bad talk. So if you need an example of how not to do it, that's it. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments below, and I hope to see you soon for another video with a much better lecture.